Hello, this is my New Game Plus Mage build. I'm still using parts of the Shrine Maiden set like I have been since my Chapter 2 video, but I've also added in parts of 2 other armor sets, and that's because I wanted to expand what the Mage build could do. But we'll get into that in a moment. First, let me rewind to just before you actually start New Game Plus. So these are my stats. I was level 120 when I beat the game the first time, and this is my gear. I have a couple of divines there, and I'll show you how I got those in a moment. I stopped leveling at 120 just because after maxing out the magic stat, I didn't really see a point of putting points into any other stat because they don't help with magic damage, so I just left it. Before you actually start New Game Plus, I recommend that you do the new battle scrolls that become available right after you beat the final boss, especially this one, Sinister End. I recommend this one because I got my Yasukani Magatama from here. I'm not sure if it just has like a higher drop rate or what it is, but in this very first encounter, this first crucible here is where I got my Yasukani Magatama. And this is a pretty easy encounter for us to do as mages as well, so long as you know how to not waste your spells. Like if you notice here, I didn't just spam out Hellgust, I let it circle back and hit the enemy again. Hellgust stays active for about 10 seconds, and as long as your target that you're locked onto is still alive, it'll circle back and it can hit that target like 2 to 3 times. And among all of this loot here is where I got my Yasukani Magatama, and it had the grace that I wanted on it as well, so maybe I was just really lucky, but I got it from here. And I'll show you more about the grace in a moment, but first let me show you the Sudama Blessing, because that's also really important to gearing up quickly. So the Sudama Blessing, I recommend just having one item there at a time for the increased drop rate level. And so I'm putting the Wandering Shrine Maiden Hakama there, and it'll give you that 27% increased drop rate for it. And basically what I do is I go and kill something, and when I get it, I'll go back to the shrine and switch to a different item. What I'm doing is I'm killing Revenants, and you specifically want Revenants that have 100% divine items equipped, because that means they'll have a 100% drop rate for divine items, which means if they drop what you want at that 27% drop rate, it'll be guaranteed divine. So like you just saw, I got a divine Shrine Maiden's Hakama there, Wandering Shrine Maiden's Hakama there. Now this guy had some purples equipped, so I'm showing you what's going to happen when you fight something that has like some purples. See, it's not like all divine that he drops some purple stuff as well. This next one's going to be 100% divine again, because he's got all divine loot on. And you'll see just from killing these 3 Revenants here that I've got 2 Wandering Shrine Maiden Hakama divine just from this. And that's what I did to gear up. It only took me about 15 minutes of just killing Revenants. And then I went to the blacksmith and reforged them to get the passives that I wanted, and this was the result of my equipment after about 15 minutes of killing Revenants. So the grace that I'm using is Grace of Judojin, and the goal is to have 5 pieces of Judojin, but I couldn't find a divination board, a divine divination board. That's the one thing that I'm missing here. So it's 5 pieces Grace of Judojin, 3 pieces Wandering Shrine Maiden, and 3 pieces Shrine Maiden. And the Wandering Shrine Maiden is there for the untouched summoning seals. So the goal of this build was a couple of things. I wanted to be able to cast a lot of spells and do a lot of summoning, so I wanted both untouched Omio and untouched summoning seals to be above 40%. With the Grace of Judo Gene, I wanted the Life Drain Omio Magic hit and the 50 Omio Magic Power. And you'll notice in a lot of my weapon, and I'll show you in a few moments on my summons as well, I have these Amrita bonuses, like Amrita bonus Omio Magic damage and Amrita bonus Scorched and things like that. The goal of that is to build up my Amrita gauge faster so that I can use Living Weapon, or what is it called in this game? Living Artifact, a lot more often. I like to use Living Artifact during boss fights because when you have Living Artifact active, you can't be one-shot. So just in case you make a mistake, you won't take any damage. So this is Ho-Oh, I have it maxed out, at 10.2% untouched Omio. And these are my two summons. So they both have the Amrita bonus Inflict Scorch. I'm using Ibaraki Doji for my second summon. They're both going to do lightning damage since Ho-Oh is a lightning one, so Blood Edge Demon is also a lightning. My level is 128. I had to put a few levels in skill and constitution just to meet the minimum requirements for the Wandering Shrine Maiden set. Outside of that, everything's pretty much the same with my stats, aside from just having more untouched Omio, 45% untouched summoning, and a lot more Amrita gauge charge. So as you can see here, I've got 46% untouched Omio and 45% untouched summoning. And let me show you my clan next. So I'm still in the same clan, Kajiwara, and that's because I really like the untouched summoning seals and the reduced movement Omio Magic hit, which is just a free sloth every time we cast spells. For my skills, so the only ones that matter are Common and Ninja. So this is untouched Omio Magic. This is untouched summoning seals. This one makes it easier to burst counter. This one lets you cancel actions with summon seals, and this one lets you cast spells faster. For Ninjutsu, Rigor of the Gods is just more elemental damage for us. Patience of the God lets us build up status ailments faster. And Dreadbringer gives us more damage based on how many debuffs we have on the enemy. Next I'll show you guys my Soul Core loadout. So this is my spell loadout. You already know my summons. So I'm using Hellfire, Geyser Shot, Thunderstorm Shot, Talisman of the Fist of course, Explosive Shot, and Hellgust. That's my normal spell loadout for when I'm adventuring around the map or doing anything that's not fighting a boss. But speaking of spell loadouts, let me show you like this managed equipment set thing. This is meant to be able to use to save multiple builds, but I use it just to save two different spell loadouts. I have my boss spell loadout and my adventuring spell loadout. Everything else is exactly the same. The level, the gear, and everything. The only thing that changes are my spells. And the reason I do this is because without saving your spell loadouts, every time you get to a boss, you have to like rifle through your soul cores one at a time to switch them up to your boss spell loadout if you don't have it saved. And if you do have it saved, it's really fast to just swap. It's a few button presses and you're there. And I'll actually show you how quick it is now. I'm going to switch to my boss spell loadout, which is the 4 hell spells plus Carnage and Talisman of the Fist, which is what you see here in the bottom left corner. And now I'll switch back to my adventuring spells loadout. My adventuring spells loadout is Explosive Shot, Thunderstorm Shot, Geyser Shot, Hellgust, Hellfire, and Talisman of the Fist, which you see here, and it's just that fast to switch. So I really recommend that to anyone who likes to swap their spell loadouts before a boss fight. So now I'm going to show you guys a couple of battle scrolls in New Game Plus, starting with the 3 Oni one. The 3 Oni one is a really easy one for us to do as mages for 2 reasons. One, because it's 3 yokai bosses, and yokai are always weak to some element. Like, the Demon of Pride is weak to wind, Demon of Envy is next, who is weak to water, and so on. The second reason this is really easy is because there's only 3 bosses in this mission, and just from playing the mage build so much, I have noticed that on average, with about 46% untouched Nioh magic, about 3 bosses in a row is the limit to how many bosses we can kill without having to use a Sacred Brush. Usually any more than 3 bosses and we have to use Sacred Brushes to restore some of our magic spell charges. We still can do boss rushes with more than 3 bosses. It'll still be relatively easy for us, but it becomes resource intensive because we have to use Sacred Brushes then. And you notice we're wiping these bosses out in like less time than it takes for them to be summoned in. And you guys have the full build now, so you'll all be able to do this as well. Now I want to show you a battle scroll that has more than 3 bosses in the boss rush. This is going to be, I think it's called the First to 5. Yeah, Shinsengumi First to 5. So this one has 5 bosses in a row that you have to fight. And I'm showing you this just to show sort of the limitation of the mage build. It's not a limitation that's so strong that you won't be able to do the mission. You'll see I'll still get through the mission with ease, but it's just a limitation that shows like after a certain point, which is on average going to be about 3 boss kills, you'll need to start using Sacred Brushes. So that was the first boss. One thing I want to point out here as well is the reason I'm using Ibaraki Doji as my second summon is because she not only does a lot of damage, but against humanoid-sized enemies, Ibaraki Doji gives a hard knockdown when she attacks them. She like knocks them down flat on their faces, and that gives you a few seconds to do whatever you want to while they're getting back up. So she's a really good summon just for crowd control against humanoid-sized enemies as well. So that was the second boss, this is the third now. Keep an eye on my spell charges for this one. You see I'm already out of Hellgust and Hellstream. So after this boss goes down, which is the third boss down, now I'm going to have to use Sacred Brushes. And also keep in mind, when you do use a Sacred Brush, it also restores your summoning seals. But with this spell loadout, because I'm using all 4 Hell spells and you only have 3 at best of each spell, the Sacred Brush is only going to restore 1 of each spell charge because it only restores 30% of your spell charges, and 30% of 3 is 1 when you round up to the nearest whole number. So you only get 1 of each spell charge restored. So that means basically after 3 bosses, pretty much after each boss from then on, after the 4th boss, the 5th boss, the 6th boss and onward, you're going to need to use a Sacred Brush after each boss fight. The first 3 is going to be the easy part. You can get through that easily with no Sacred Brush. Then after that, you'll need a Sacred Brush after each fight. But you'll still be able to do it. I'm just like showing the limitation of it. Okay, and I want to show one more battle scroll. This one is more of an adventuring battle scroll. This is the one where you fight your way through this cave and then there's Hinoinma as the boss at the very end of it. And I wanted to show this one just so you guys can see how I play when I'm not just fighting a boss. So this is just adventuring through a battle scroll with my normal spell loadout. So the buff that you see me casting is just Talisman of the Fist. That's the only buff that I'm using. The other 5 spells that I have are just offensive spells that I showed you earlier. Hellgust, Hellfire, Explosive Shot, Thunderstorm Shot, and Geyser Shot. I use Hellgust instead of using Gale Shot just because Hellgust is just way better than Gale Shot in like every way. Gale Shot it's kind of slow, it has no tracking, and usually you'll get 3 out of 5 of the shots to actually hit your target, whereas Hellgust does a lot more damage and it tracks and it can hit your target multiple times if it lives through getting hit once. So it's just a much better spell than Hellgust. Not Hellgust, sorry. Much better spell than Gale Shot. Hellgust is a better spell than Gale Shot. And if you notice, I started this battle scroll with 0% Amrita gauge, and it's almost full now. So the goal was for me to be able to fill up my Amrita gauge much faster. That's why I have all those Amrita gauge bonuses on, because I like to be able to use my living artifact form basically at will. That's kind of how I played through Nioh 1 and Nioh 2, is where I was able to charge up my living weapon or yokai shift extremely quickly just by casting spells, and I was able to use yokai shift or living weapon whenever I wanted to. And it adds a lot of survivability onto the build when you're able to do that, because you can't be killed while you're in living weapon or yokai form, or in this game, living artifact form. So that's what I'm sort of working up to with the build in this game as well. So right now we have the stats to where our Omeo magic is filling up our Amrita gauge each time we hit something with fire or just any spells in general, but it's not charging up nearly as fast as I want it to yet, so that's something that we're going to work on in the DLCs. We got one more shrine before the final boss, so I'm just gonna switch to my boss spell loadout here. Which is just all 4 of the hell spells, and it's just that fast. And it's time to drop in and just annihilate Hinoima. You'll notice right at the beginning of the fight I shift into living artifact form as well, just so that in case I do mess up or get hit or something, I don't take any damage. And that's basically the purpose of living artifact. I've also seen there's one stat that you can roll on weapons that gives you like 5% elemental damage while you're in living artifact form. It's not a whole lot, but I mostly use it just for the survivability and because it just looks really cool. So that's all I've got for this video, guys. We have our mage builds from the beginning of the game all the way through New Game Plus, so we know what spells we should be casting. We also know that the hell spells are basically the strongest offensive spells in the game. But next week, just for fun, I kind of wanted to go over the absolute worst spells in the game. So, see you guys next week to go over the worst spells.
I know you told your friend you're not okay, and tell me what's wrong and why you never said you felt that way. And guess you're trying to stay strong and fake a smile until I look away. But I've known you too long, it hurts to watch your blue eyes fade to gray as you fade away, as you fade away, as you fade away.